Hello, everybody. Welcome back to EFMP Stories. Today we have one of our founders with us, Kaci McCarley, and she's joining us from her luxurious accommodations right now. She's in the middle of a PCS, and I will let her kind of give us a little bit of the background into where are you located right now, Kaci?
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks so much for taking this time with me. So I'm coming to you live from my travel trailer. My husband is active duty Army, and we have PCS this summer. We have 5 kiddos, and so we've PCSed in the middle of this crazy pandemic. And so we're currently staying in our travel trailer until our house is ready. So you are getting real live action of PCS right now.
You know, it's reality. I know we were talking earlier about not wanting to oh, what about your surroundings? I'm like, I don't want to have these conversations in a bedroom in my house and you're in a travel trailer. We're having them here because this is where we are in life. And, our work at Partners in Promise is real life. It's not glamorous situation at all times. So
yeah, absolutely. So this is real life. And so my hope is that just the real life situation just connects to help support other military families who are perhaps going through the same thing or are soon going to go through the same thing.
Yeah, and so what we always like to start with the stories is just to get a little bit of feel for what your family has experienced with the EFMP program, but also just telling your family story. So how is it that you are involved in the special education advocacy world?
Sure. Well, let me begin by saying I wear the parent hat. I have an amazing 15-year-old son with Down syndrome. I thought he might be here with me today, but he's actually with his siblings and his dad over at the pool. My husband is in processing, so he's just kind of in and out supporting while we both just juggle other responsibilities. But yes, we have a 15-year-old with Down syndrome. He's amazing. And so from the time that he was born until now, I mean, I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks that we have to advocate for the services that he both needs and he's entitled to. And so it's just become second nature for us to just be those advocates that he needs to secure the services. Like I mentioned, my husband is active duty military. He's in the Army, active duty Army. And so we are in the EFMP family member program just by virtue of our amazing son Zeke. And so I will say that from our personal experience, EFMP is different from various locations. From installation to installation, it varies. And so we've had some experiences that have been super helpful, and we've been able to team up and advocate and get resources that we needed. And then we've had some that have not, that's been real radio silence, and we've really been on our own. So the experiences vary greatly. And now that we're in our new location, I'm about to get to see how it is here for families. I'm not sure yet. So I'm in uncharted waters myself, reaching to my toolkit of experiences and networking with other parents as well, to be sure that my son gets what he needs also here in this new place as we're PCSing.
So you talk about the toolkit, and of course you have many years of experience dealing with advocating, but what does it look like when you move to a new location, especially right now? Everyone with COVID, it's uncharted. We don't have any benchmarks for success for how we should be connecting to these school districts that maybe are not meeting in person, and maybe you don't get to have those face-to-face interactions for an IEP meeting. Like, what is your first kind of agenda items that you're going to be looking towards as you reach out to these school districts?
Sure. Well, I'll share from the moment my husband received orders and we knew where he was coming. I'm on the phone, I'm calling, I'm networking, I'm on the computer, and I know all spouses, especially if you have a child with unique learning needs or with a disability, they're being proactive, right? We know that we have to, and so that was our case. And so we were fortunate enough to be able to make a trip here to our new location and kind of scope it out. We did a little recon, which gave me an opportunity to meet with area school districts, to meet with special ed coordinators, to tour schools, and to ask some questions, not to challenge those schools, but for me to really be able to interview them to see, is this going to be a good match, and what does my mommy gut tell me about this as a particular placement? And so we did do that. We took initiative and we did do that. And so we found an amazing district here here that we feel really good about. Now the proof will be after we get in and we see, and they take a look at his IEP, and we see when the rubber starts to hit the road. But those initial conversations have been really positive. And at some other districts that it felt like a little more hesitation. But that initial interview of, okay, tell me, if I were to go into the cafeteria at lunchtime, what exactly would I see? Would I see students with disabilities integrated with the general ed population, or would I see students with disabilities segregated over in a certain area? If I were to walk down the hall when classes are changing, would I see all kids changing classes, or would I only see typically developing students changing classes? What would I see? So those are the types of questions that I ask, because for our son, and I think you've already mentioned this, you totally understand that each child is different, whether you have a disability or you don't. Each person is different. We all have different skill sets, and we have different things that we like and high interest and high value things. And so students with disabilities are no different. They have their own unique things that are awesome about them, and things that they're good at that other kids perhaps are not good at. And so for our son, it's important to us that he continue to have his social skills and his relationship skills developed, and continue to maintain those. Our son functions at a very high level academically and independently, and we want to make sure that he stays there and doesn't take any steps back just based on his diagnosis. So we want to place him at a school setting where he would be fully integrated as much as possible with his typically developing peers. Number one, because he deserves that. And number two, because that's the placement that he's known, and we just don't want to take any steps back. So
because you have that unique insight of just having moved and have it fresh in your mind. I mean, everyone has a process. I have a process. Everyone does. You look up school districts, and maybe you look up housing, if it's on installation or off. You have your checklists when you move to a new location. When you're looking to advocate for your, special needs children, and then you also, you're looking at the school districts, what resources have you found useful in finding those particular school districts? Because I know there's a lot of, you go on Zillow and you look at the great schools rating, and that doesn't necessarily address the special education programming. So what have you found as a useful tool?
So I'll say that two of my top useful tools, number one, are parents on the ground. When I found out we were coming here, I immediately connected with the local Down syndrome network and with other military parents who have similar dynamics. And so parents are a tremendous resource. And another piece that I think us as military parents have to really keep in mind is as resources change in locations, so do individuals. And so I may talk to Susie, and Susie was here in this place 5 years ago, and they didn't have resources, but maybe now they do. Or maybe Susie says, oh yeah, I was there last year, and they did, and now they don't. So the ever-changing resources and ever-changing demographic and population. But my first go-to is going to be other parents in the area with similar dynamics. The second tool in my belt that I'm going to go to is I want to hear about culture and perspective and diversity and inclusion. Those are the things I want to hear about. I don't want to hear like how much money and how many resources that you have, because my personal experience has been, we can go to schools that have amazing amounts of resources and programming, but if they don't have a mindset of inclusion and diversity and embracing differences, then it doesn't matter what those resources are. And to the flip side of that, we've also had schools that have had low resources just by looking at, on pieces of paper, just looking at the paper. Well, maybe they had less money, maybe they had less teachers, maybe they had less paraprofessional support, but they had an attitude of inclusion and celebrating the differences, the different abilities of children, and they were wildly successful for my son. And so we don't just hang it on, they report through a website that they have a certain amount of resources or certain programming. That's fantastic, but you have to get in there and talk and see, well, what's their perspective and what's the culture of the school and the culture of the district.
Yeah, I mean, that mindset is so, it's clear that that's actually become so inherent in the Partners in Promise, and the way that we all operate is to look for that we're working together, and we're together is stronger. We're not coming with
That's
only
right.
problems. We're going to be proactive about solutions, and moving towards success doesn't mean leaving anyone behind. So this is just really, it's a great mentality to go into any area of life with. It's like, we're stronger together. And inclusion is so important in our school districts as well. It sounds like you were very proactive about finding good school that will work with your special, the special situation of your family. But obviously, what brings you to Partners in Promise and what brings you to advocacy for EFMP standardization and all the other things we're for is probably not so great experiences, not so wonderful situations. Can you tell us a little bit about some of those possible, those experiences that you've learned, obviously learned from?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I can tell you one fresh off the press right now that we're
Whoa.
battling. Yeah, I know. It's so frustrating because it's like there has to be better ways. There have to be better ways to be able to support military families. There are better ways. We could do better than this. And I'm constantly telling my husband, the Army can do better than this. We can do better than this. And so I think that that's the goal that we work towards. Our kids deserve it. Number one, and number two, they're entitled to it by their rights. And number three, we can do better. I mean, and if we can do better, why would we not? I feel like we're either part of the problem or we're part of the solution, and so we're choosing to be a part of the solution. But the particular specific item I can share with you that's hot off the press in my trailer here is our son has severe obstructive sleep apnea, which is relatively common in kiddos with Down syndrome, the narrow passageways. And so he snores terribly, and we're all in the trailer with him, right? So he snores terribly, and he stops breathing when he's sleeping. And so it's critical that he wears a CPAP machine to sleep. Like, this is for his health and his safety. This is not just for our convenience. This is health and safety. And so we were actually sent to our previous duty station after my husband's orders were changed several times. We were sent to our previous duty station with the understanding that the medical resources that our son specifically needed were there and in place. Okay, well, they're there, but no one's talking about waiting times. No one's talking about accessibility. And so we arrived there. We were there 2.5 years, and it outlines in his EFMP paperwork that he's required to see a developmental pediatrician at least every 12 months. We were there 2.5 years. He never saw a developmental pediatrician one time, and it was not for lack of us calling, complaining, being on waiting lists. Not one time did he get to see a developmental pediatrician, which we were sent there and told he could access, and he didn't in 2.5 years. And so how does that impact him? Well, a piece of that puzzle is that he needs equipment for his CPAP machine. We were not able to get a sleep study, so he needs a sleep study to get that equipment. We have equipment from our previous duty station that we were like hanging on to and storing up. So this is what EFMP families do, right? They hang on to it, they store it up, they clean it. We do what we can to preserve it as long as we can. But so we took it forward to our duty station. We finally got him in for a sleep study 2 months before we're about to PCS. But in that 8 weeks in which before we're PCSing to come here, never followed through to actually get the equipment. So bless his sweetheart, he went in, he was tested for COVID because they had to test before they could do the sleep study. Oh, it was so awful for him. Then he did the sleep study, we got the results, and we have spoken to the EFMP case manager at that previous duty station at least 2 to 3 times a week for the last 8 weeks. And we had to leave on Friday. My husband has a report date. We had to leave, and no updated CPAP machine. He needs a new machine, no new equipment, nothing. So today I actually spoke to EFMP here at our new location and the developmental pediatrician's office, and they say, oh, sorry, you're going to have to do the sleep study all over again, and he'll have to be tested for COVID again before he does the sleep study. So right here is just like a scenario of when you transition, if those resources are not available or you can't access them. And I'm presenting it like it's a hassle for our family. That is just the tip of the iceberg. The real impact is for our son who needs the resources, right? It's for our son who needs the equipment so that he can be healthy and he can sleep and he can rest and his brain can rest so that he's ready for the next day. So here we sit at our new location, and bless his sweetheart, he's going to have to be retested and he's going to have another sleep study so that we can try again to get his updated equipment. So this is why I advocate. This is why I speak up. Because, you know, we know that we need to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. And if we say nothing, then he's the one who misses out. I mean, he's the one who misses out anyway, but it's not okay. And we can do better than this. We can do better.
And I know, you know, there's a lot of, when Michelle presented at the congressional testimony and Austin as well, they talked about the difference between, you know, that lack of continuity of healthcare services, like, you know, that you're just addressing, and also that there's a twofold kind of dropping the ball, unfortunately. It's the medical component and the educational component, and these children are going in, they're having gaps in both of those services. And our, you know, legislative focus is obviously working on how we can lessen those educational hurdles. Have you had any, obviously with what you are mentioning, how you research your Colorado schools, had you had any experiences prior to that with the having some gaps in educational experiences as well? I mean, it has,
Sure.
what does that look like?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well, just being a military family and having a kiddo on an IEP, we know that comparable services is one of the greatest challenges that our families experience, because the services don't compare from district to district or state to state or installation to installation. And so many times it's a hard reset. It's starting over. And sometimes it's trying to secure the same services that you worked so hard to secure at the previous location. And then other times it's trying to get out from underneath that IEP that really didn't do your kiddo justice and get something better for them. So that's a tough situation. But for us personally, just yes. Yes, from district to district and state to state. And even when we've been at the same duty station, we've changed districts. So our son has done private school, public school, we've done homeschool, we've done the whole gamut just to keep him moving forward with educational progress. And so we've made adjustments as we've had to as a family. You know, and I come back to, you know, families shouldn't have to advocate and fight that hard for services that are entitled to their student. But yes, that's definitely been our experience. And we've had some fabulous districts that I feel like have been creative and gone above and beyond to support, and then some that have just been very, very a wall in which we knew right away, oh man, we're not even going to have this is not going to go very far very fast. So yeah, we've experienced all of it throughout all of our moves, so and tried to adjust accordingly.
So what is that? I mean, obviously we're talking about children with exceptional needs, and you have, you know, one child who falls into that category, but you're a mother of more than one child. And how does that impact your other children when you're having to move around? I mean, of course, we all know military children are resilient and wonderful, but we never want to ask them to be. It's
Right.
just part of who they become. But, you know, how have you handled having multiple children while dealing with some of these hurdles?
Yeah, it's tough. And so we have to employ family members and friends and people who we hardly know. Hey, can you watch my kids? So I mean, I had that happen 2 duty stations ago where I had to call someone that I had just met. Like we went to church and we met some people and I got some numbers, but I didn't even know them. And so how awkward and how unsettling as a mother to ask a stranger to sit with my kids so that I could go to an IEP meeting with my kiddo who, you know, is on an IEP. So it's awkward and it's uncomfortable and it's a challenge and it's upsetting, you know, all of those different emotions. And I think for our other 4 kiddos, so we have 5, for our other 4 kiddos, you know, they're fantastic. They're so supportive. They're so helpful. They treat our son Zeke just like, any other sibling. They understand he's more alike than different. And they challenge him to do things for himself and not take advantage of. He'll say, I can't do that, I'm special. We'll say, no, you're not. Yeah, so
sibling rivalry doesn't have any.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So they're fantastic about that. But at the same time, as a parent, I do feel like, oh gosh, if we could just get some movement on some of these problems here at the foundation level, it could positively impact everybody throughout our family. I mean, that is the truth of the situation, because everybody has to pull weight and do things that they wouldn't have to do in another context or another situation.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of true of it from the top level of supporting the family supports the service member.
Yes.
And if you can support even, you think the children is almost, they're not the bottom, because truly they end up taking over the whole family. They're in charge, right? So
right.
The children are in charge of our lives, let's be honest. But because if we can help them, it helps everyone. If they're struggling, if they're hurting, the retention, readiness, all of those operational hurdles and milestones that they need to meet, it's going to be harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we're talking about operations and whatnot, one of the myths that we've kind of tried to dispel or just even address is talking about enrollment in EFMP, and there's stigma associated with that. And I wondered if you might be able to talk to that, and if that's something you've struggled with or your husband has struggled with.
Sure. So do you mean like the stigma of this is going to hurt my career, or this is not going to help my child?
Well, I mean, probably
both.
You talk to both if you want to. I that was the second one you mentioned was it's a new myth that I've heard, but no, more of the career implications. I think that's something that people are worried about often.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know for us, going overseas will not happen. I mean, and we've been told that's not going to happen. So yeah, I mean, that does at some level impact the career. Thankfully, my service member, he's family first. And so we're kind of okay to navigate that piece of it. But yeah, unfortunately, service members shouldn't feel punished, right? Because they're caring for their child. That just doesn't quite make sense. And again, I just feel like that's another area. Come on, we can do better. Come on, military service branches, we can do better than that.
Well, I think that the majority of people we talk to haven't had any obvious, visible negative impact. And I think that speaks to the fact that there is, it's our own feeling. It's a feeling. It's not necessarily like legally it's against the law for them to punish them based on it's just, there's protections for everyone. So
right.
But we have to talk about it,
Yeah, absolutely. And with regard to, EFMP, maybe not being helpful, not so much helpful. I mean, I know that once you get enrolled in it, it's kind of hard to get out. And so if you have a condition that perhaps can be resolved and is more temporary, which is not our situation, but it's some people's situation, then I know it's quite difficult to actually get unenrolled from EFMP. And so, yeah. But I think it makes me sad that service members, as a general statement, don't have positive feelings about EFMP. I think that makes me sad. Most everyone I speak with, when we say, oh, we're advocating for, better EFMP services or reform within EFMP, oh, good. That's the response. Oh, yes, that needs to happen. And immediately people follow it up with like their own little personal testimony of their own experience of how maybe they saw it as a hindrance and it didn't help at a time when they needed help, and things don't connect. Just back to my situation here specifically, we were in one TRICARE region and we've just moved to a different TRICARE region. And so literally EFMP at my previous installation said, as you are driving away, call the new TRICARE region and let them know that you're coming, because you can't fire it up with them there when you're here. Otherwise you'll cancel it here. And then if you need something here, then you can't get it here. And so it's just like, really, we can't connect this a little bit to make continuity of service a little bit easier. So
we're excited. And I just wanted Do you have anything else that you'd like to share or add? We've covered quite a bit, and I appreciate you taking the time during your move. on
Well, thanks.
the road.
Thanks for taking time to catch up with me. I really appreciate it. No, I feel like this has been a great conversation, and I'm just so thankful for all the advocacy work. And something that I feel like we as a family have kind of accepted, for better or for worse, is that we're gonna speak up, because it's important to speak up for those who can't speak for themselves. And we may not see all the changes we want to see for our own child, but we're paving a way for other service members and their families and their families and their families. And so it's that ripple effect. And so it's about a bigger mission than just us. I mean, our kid is enough, right? Our singular child is reason enough, but it's about a bigger picture and a bigger vision and a bigger mission.
And we believe that sharing our voices helps the advocacy process happen, because together, one individual story is just part of the larger picture. And, feel free to visit our website at thepromiseact.org, and you can find our EFMP stories, as well as signing up to participate and contribute yourself. But thank you so much, Kaci.
Thanks, Jennifer.
We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.